you're going to learn, if you want to be in a startup, work at a startup. Use somebody else's money to learn if you want to do it. If you're an entrepreneur, you're going to be in sales calls, you're going to go and try and close a deal, or you're going to have to go, in our case, to a physical retailer and try and get them to have your product in there. And that's nerve-wracking. It's scary. But if you feel good in yourself, you know that you're coming to that meeting or this podcast or anything like it, I at least know that I have my bases covered. The best person to tell the story of the brand is the founder. The sooner that you can get comfortable with that, the better it'll be, the faster it'll happen. Every entrepreneur needs to learn is sales.
Hey, Ryan. Welcome to Business Club.
Thanks so much.
Such a pleasure having you here.
Yeah. Appreciate you inviting me on.
Pleasure. And, just to give you a little bit of background about our podcast, we've spoken a little bit before. We're trying to highlight small business owners and their background, their journey, what the product or service is, and see, in a way, how we can actually inspire the next generation of entrepreneurs, someone who want to become like you, do not know where to start, and probably hoping that this journey or this conversation will help them get that boost that they need.
Absolutely. Happy to help where I can.
Thank you. So we always start with a little bit of a background. So I would love to know your background, where you studied, where you grew up, and what prompted you to take up what you have taken up today.
Sure. So I kind of moved around a little bit. So I was actually born in Worcester, Ohio.
Okay.
People outside of Worcester will call it Worcester, but it's Worcester.
Worcester.
And then moved from Worcester to Hudson, then on to North Andover, Mass. And then I essentially grew up in Charlotte.
Okay. How long have you been here?
On and off for about 18 years.
Oh, okay. That's cool.
So I moved here when we were in 6th grade. And then after college, where I went to Queen's University of Charlotte, I decided to venture off and kind of go and find myself, as many people do. So I moved over to California, actually, and then to loop it back around, came back to Charlotte to kind of start a business, which kind of leads us here.
Right.
But, realistically, it's a bit of a traveling journey of different industries and just trying different things to kind of see what's suited for me. And I think that's kind of a journey that everyone should kind of go through.
And you did your university and degree in what?
Business administration with a minor in psychology.
Okay.
Psychology has always been so interesting to me, and anyone who's going to take a step into business,
right,
they're going to learn very quickly that psychology is a big part of it. So I'm glad that I've always been interested in it.
Cool.
And people are just so interesting. It's just, we're all so different.
Unique and different. Yeah, absolutely.
In the best way.
Yep, absolutely. So your family, you've got family or kids or anything?
No kids. No kids. I'm very excited for that.
Okay.
But I'm also not rushing towards it.
Of course.
Because it's just one of those things that I know the commitment that it takes, and also what's kind of required in sort of a stability perspective.
Right.
And so I'd like to be a little bit further along.
Yeah, so you're well planned
to do that. Yeah, but still have parents. They're out in Charlotte, same house that we've been in for 18 years.
Awesome.
And so we're very well versed in Charlotte.
Cool. So what inspired you to transition from from personal training? I think you did some personal training, right? Mm-hmm. And to the cosmetics and manufacturing industry?
Sure. So fresh out of college, it was one of those things that I knew that I wanted to start a business. It's just what it was. And at the time, I was really into working out. And I really felt the differences in myself and my confidence and just the way that I could move through the world just felt so much better. And so I wanted to be able to provide that for other people. And so I started that business. It was doing well. And then when I decided to move to California...
Was it business or was it consulting?
So it was a business.
Okay.
So I would do one-on-one as well as group training.
Okay.
And it was a great time. Had some great clients. Really enjoyed the time there. And so when I decided to move to California, I was like, okay, well, I'm going to kind of continue doing this thing. And so went through lots of job interviews that included getting an offer from Equinox, which is kind of a higher end gym. And I was offered a job from them, as well as this great company that the founders actually founded Quest Nutrition, the protein bar company.
Right.
And I kind of had this decision. I'm a lot of my life is about crossroads, the decision that you can make.
Right.
You go one way or the other. And I kind of thought, well, Equinox is always going to be around. And if they offer me a job once, they'll probably offer me another job
Yeah.
again.
Yeah.
And so I decided to go down the startup route, which kind of brought me to manufacturing that was more food manufacturing. And so I helped make nut butters and flavored nuts and things of that nature. And it was a really fun process to just kind of get your hands dirty, really understand what business is like from a smaller scale.
Correct.
And they were still pretty early on. They had some sales, but they were still growing. And so that kind of brought me to the manufacturing side and startups. For me and for anyone else, if you're going to learn, if you want to be in a startup, work at a startup.
Right.
You use somebody else's money to learn if you want to do it. Because as you know, it is
It's
quite
incredible.
it's quite the grind, quite the challenge.
You gotta wear many hats.
And to me, that's the most fun, is to be able to wear all those hats and be able to learn all these different things.
Correct.
And so that's kind of where the transition happened. And then that brought me to another food manufacturing company called Kava, which now they're a rather large.
Yeah, I heard about Kava.
Yeah, they're a fast casual Mediterranean company. Yeah. Great food. If anyone's never tried it before, great stuff.
They do cereals and granolas also, right?
No, so not to my knowledge. Maybe they do. Maybe they have that in retail. I don't tend to buy this.
Or the bars.
Retail. No, so they're more bowls. So think of it like Mediterranean Chipotle.
Oh, okay, got it. The Kava bowl. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And I helped build their manufacturing. And then I left that, as I tend to do. There's a theme in my life, which is dive way deeper than you should and just figure it out as you go.
Right.
And so when I decided to leave them, I was jobless for 3 months, as it tended to be, because I'm more of a person who would prefer to wait for the right opportunity versus kind of needing to I have to get something now.
Right.
And that's the benefit of kind of being a bit more of a
minimalist
and patient. And so I always had extra money. And then that brought me to this other great company called Dr. Squatch, which is known for their natural men's soap. Great company. They're multinational in every retailer, everywhere. Great stuff. And I built their in-house manufacturing. And so same thing, I'm in a garage in Venice making their beard oils by hand and learning how to do that, having never made beard oils before, refined their formulas there. And then they saw that, oh, wow, there's some great potential with this guy.
Right.
And so then they were opening up their manufacturing for their core SKU, which is their soap. And they go, well, we got this guy. Why don't we have him do it? And so I learned how to make soap and then took a 35,000 square foot facility that was flat, nothing in it, having never made soap before, build a 150 person team with the help of some other people as well. But I was sort of driving the actual manufacturing. And we went to a 7-figure volume in 4 months from zero.
Oh, wow.
So it was a very quick acceleration. But it was a great journey. And that was my favorite part of everything, is that building process.
Yeah. Is that where the origins of Lumbazzi?
Yeah, Lumbazzi. Yep. Where that kind of started was, my own sort of journey. I'm a 90s baby, so I'm basically a boomer. But I saw with Dr. Squatch that men are transitioning. They care about these things now, and Dr. Squatch is humongous now. And when I first started to when I left, they went from 7 figures to 9 figures in 18 months.
Oh, wow.
And it's a very quick acceleration. So I'm like, okay, there's something here. There's a shift happening. And I'm a person who really enjoys making product and always finding that extra edge that you can make in a product. And so that's kind of where Lumbazzi came from. I'm a product nerd. I just love making products. The most fun thing. I have my own electrolyte mixes, my own, coffee mixes that are kind of meal replacements. You get your caffeine as well as a little meal on the go. I just like making product. And so Lumbazzi kind of came about with my own struggles with, acne and breakouts, and my skin was always really irritated when I try something new. And sort of selfishly, I did it for myself.
Yeah.
But I also think from an entrepreneurial perspective, that's where the best businesses come.
Absolutely.
Is you have a problem, nobody's solving it, so let's solve it.
Absolutely. So tell me a little bit more about Lumbazzi, the product itself. What is it?
So there's sort of two ways to answer that. So we have the physical products, which are
Right.
minimal ingredient, all natural, typically oil-based products. So you don't have to add water that adds preservatives just to keep the product safe for the end consumer. And there's a shift in kind of the consumer understanding of preservatives and what they're looking for. So kind of align there well. But really the thing that we're sort of differentiating with is sort of the approach to that. So there's the sort of low price end to where you're kind of mass market. And those are typically kind of jokey. You know, it's all memes and jokes and not very serious, which is great for a certain population.
Right.
And then there's this other side that's expensive for expensive sake.
Okay.
And so we're kind of in this, okay, somebody's maybe come to one of these mass market companies and go, okay, well, this is an improvement from what I was doing. And we're kind of the off-ramp. Once they've kind of tried it, they go, okay, this is a step in the right direction, but I still want a little bit more. It's maybe still not quite working for me. We're kind of that nice off-ramp. And so our focus is less on the product, although it's great and people love it. It's actually what you gain along the way.
The benefits.
So it's not even just the sort of skin benefits or the physical form, which obviously that happens, but there's these skills that you learn along the way.
Got it.
And those skills are sort of persistence, commitment, dedication, even when you don't want to do something. There's days that even though I own the company, there's days that I don't want to do this stuff.
Yeah.
Because it takes extra time and I'm busy and I don't want to do it. But those are the days when you're building the skills, when it's hard. And so on those days, that's when you take that extra step. You go, God, I know it's going to be helpful. It's just like on that day where you'd prefer to have a piece of pizza, but you go, I know that I should maybe have something that's a little bit more nutritious.
Right.
And you make that more difficult choice. And so we're more focused around that skill acquisition and how that applies to men then being able to do the thing that most men want to do, which is leave their mark in the world. And so that's why our tag is Master Your Look, Define Your Legacy.
Yeah.
As we believe that mastering your look is the thing that then leads you down the path to be able to leave that mark on the world. And it's an easy entry point, very easy entry point to these skill acquisitions. And I found with myself, as well as with my business partner, we found that when we were able to focus on these really small aspects where you're appreciating the man in the mirror, that was what then kind of led us and propelled our day to then be able to continue striving and doing the same thing in other areas of life.
So if I were to put it in simpler words, it's a product leading to the style or the character or the discipline that you're looking for people in, so that they can actually take not only the physical aspect of the product, but also the benefits that come along with it.
Correct. And, that's sort of the master your look aspect of it. And, it's the same thing that I was doing with personal training, right?
Yeah.
So I'm trying to help people with something that I found benefit that made me feel more confident and more able to step into the hardness of life.
Got it.
If you're an entrepreneur, you're going to be in sales calls, you're going to go and try and close a deal, or you're going to have to go, in our case, to a physical retailer and try and get them to have your product in there. And that's nerve-wracking. It's scary. But if you feel good in yourself, you know that you're coming to that meeting or this podcast or anything, you're like, I at least know that I have my basics covered. I feel good. I look good.
Right.
And from there, you just kind of roll with it and you just kind of take life for what it comes.
Cool. So help me understand, your time with Dr. Squatch, whatever lessons you've learned, how did you apply that in your current endeavors?
I think the biggest thing that I ended up learning at Dr. Squatch is that going slow to go fast is better. So in their case, as I kind of spoke, they had that super accelerated growth. And that becomes its own challenge. It's a good challenge,
Yeah.
but it's its own challenge. And so what I learned is really try and build that solid foundation so that when that time comes, when you have that hockey stick,
Right.
you're at least better set up to not have to worry so heavily. Oh my gosh, our manufacturing is not in the right place. Oh my gosh, our labeling is not quite there. Oh, our systems, our back-end systems are not in place.
Right.
And so take this slow approach so that so you're ready. You know, an example I can give with that is sort of, I'm a cyclist as well. So I was in this position where I was cycling with some regularity, kind of getting into the groove of it a little bit, riding 20 miles a day, which for some people sounds like a lot. For a cyclist is just kind of maintaining.
Yeah.
But then I was in this group of guys that we would ride every so often. And with 7-day notice, they're like, oh, we're going to go to Myrtle Beach, which is 160 miles. And I had never ridden more than 60 miles. And I broke the 30-mile milestone with those guys as well.
Yeah, okay.
So I went from never going over 30 to then going to 60. And then on 7 days notice, being able to go to 160.
Yeah.
But it was because I was preparing ahead of time. And so I was laying that baseline foundation so that then I could hockey stick my output and go for 8 hours, 20 miles an hour, which is a pretty good pretty good pace. And be able to do that. So I think that's a great thing that I learned. And also just kind of, as I had mentioned before, knowing that there was a shift in sort of men's desire for these things.
Right.
And, you know, another sort of example of something like that is, we all know Dwayne The Rock Johnson.
Oh, yeah.
So he dropped Papa Tui, and he did that straight into Target as well as online. And I was watching this because, like, let's just kind of see how guys react. So they had some soaps, you know, they had some tattoo care, and they had some face care. So I'm watching the website, and wouldn't you believe the first thing that sold out was the skincare stuff. I said, how interesting that men are now making this shift to where they're actually caring
about their skin.
Their skin. And so it was just so interesting to see that shift. So you saw the sort of first wave of Dr. Squatch, and then this sort of skincare second wave, which is a very different level versus just kind of soap and shampoo and things like that men are more accustomed to using. Then you have this, and they're going to take care of their skin. And so it's just this very interesting shift that I saw, and I continue to see when I am talking to all these guys.
Cool. So you worked in very diverse industries like food manufacturing, cosmetics, and fitness. How has that shaped you as an entrepreneur?
I think the biggest takeaway that I've had from that is it doesn't matter the industry. You would think that, it's because this industry is doing so well, that's the only way I can do it. All of these industries are thriving. And so it doesn't matter, just choose the thing that you connect with, and that, like I had mentioned before, that you have a personal history with the problem. And then when you come with that solution, people are going to connect better with you when they know that you had the same problem that they did.
Correct. Yeah. Cool. Let's talk a little bit more about your brand, Lumbazzi, and men's grooming. So what does the bar father symbolize in the brand?
So it's funny. So the actual name of the company is Lumbazzi.
Lumbazzi.
Yes, like pizza. I'm Italian, and so we wanted it to kind of feel a little bit more high end. But naturally, we Americans, myself included, we don't love to pronounce things like that. And so we've kind of stuck with Lumbazzi because it's just what everybody kind of likes to say. Lumbazzi. Yep. It's a little bit more simple. So the reason for the bar father thing is we initially soft launched with soap bars. And so we're kind of doing a play on Godfather.
Okay.
And Italian, and we had this sort of, why don't we do the bar father?
Corleone.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Except he had a little bit more hair.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's kind of what that symbolized for us, is sort of we're kind of saying we're the dons of soap.
That's nice.
So that was sort of the way for us to do that. And for us, it was kind of still silly way of getting across to people, because you don't want to be too serious, right?
Yeah, you're the godfather of bars.
Yeah, so
bar soaps.
bar father.
Bar father, yeah. Cool. Very cool. How do you differentiate between between the competitions out there in the space? Because it's an upcoming and very evolving space.
Mhm.
But how do you separate yourself from the market?
Yeah, and again, I think that's the focus. So there's nobody that's really focusing on a legacy and what that really is. And every man wants to leave that mark on the world.
Right.
And even if that's just in your small community or just in your family, for some people they have more of a sphere of influence there.
Right.
But realistically, most men, that's what they want. And to be able to meet that end goal with a product and say, hey, when we're using this product, that's putting you on the journey and the path to get there.
Right.
And really getting that story behind it. Because gone are the days where you can just kind of have a product. There has to be something behind it.
Correct.
And so that's sort of the angle that we want to take. And so, for example, we're very desired through sort of director and above men. And so that's a sphere in which there's a certain expectation of quality and customer service and these sorts of things. And so that's sort of on the product side. On the business side, there's a major shift in the United States, kind of away from these large institutions and these sort of established companies and brands. And so when you think about that shift, people go, okay, well, I don't want to go to these big box retailers and find these things. Although that's still very prevalent for a lot of men, but they're starting to look for other options and opportunities.
Options,
And so where do most people think, where am I going to go to find an alternative option that isn't big box?
Right.
A farmer's market.
Yep.
And there's certain expectations. It's going to be a higher quality, all these different things.
And straight from the
source, from the founder. And people just love that one-on-one interaction. And so we're kind of building something that isn't scalable, quote unquote, but we're taking the non-scalable approach. And again, building this foundation to then be able to learn, how do we take this thing to where we believe most consumers are going to be going, who want a higher quality, natural, very intimate relationship with the founder. Where are they going to go? And so that's where they're going to go. And so what we're trying to figure out is, because we're still early stages on that, we're trying to figure out, how do you transition somebody from coming to a farmer's market and making them still feel like they're getting that intimate experience, because personal care is a very intimate product. And the thing that I feel is that an intimate product is not being treated in an intimate way. It's still mass produced. It's not really designed for the individual. And so we're kind of taking that approach to where we go, okay, let's meet people where they are so we can ask them the questions, put them on a personalized journey to master their look. Great.
Can you share that story behind the tagline, search for the best, get proper?
Sure. So our whole product suite is based around proper. It's proper care.
Proper care, okay.
And the reasoning for that is twofold. So you think of proper as the right way of doing things, as well as sort of there's this underlying elevation that comes with that. And so for us, we're like, oh, it's the proper way that a soap bar should be. It's the proper way that a lip balm should be. It's the proper way that a face oil should be. And so everything is kind of based around that. So where in the industry, typically, because men's care is growing, but it's still relatively small in comparison to especially the women's market.
Oh my God.
It's a substantial amount. The global men's industry is like half of just what the US women's market is, just to give some context on that. And so for us, the only way that we can do something is something that we would also want to use. We're not just making a product just to make it. It's something that we
You
feel
stand
like,
by it. Yeah.
correct. And, I got to look the part. And if I'm going to use my own products, I have to make it so it doesn't cause me any problems as well. Because if I'm going to represent, or anybody else who represents, it has to also work for them.
Cool. So that's what meaning get proper.
Yep. It's get proper, and everybody's searching for the best, right? Everybody's looking for the best option of whatever the thing is. So if you're looking for the best, get proper.
Got it. So how does these minimal ingredients contribute to the effectiveness of your brand?
I try and think about it this way. Traditionally, products are sort of in cosmetics, are kind of in a more cream or lotion form. And the thing that I've sort of experienced for myself, and now hundreds of other guys have experienced, is a lot of the creams feel like, it's not actually, but it feels like they're almost trying to mush and force your skin to absorb it versus just using what it's accustomed to.
Right.
So for example, the face oil, the majority of it is jojoba oil, which jojoba oil mimics the oil of the skin. And so regardless of your skin complexion, it'll help your skin to get to a normal level. So think about it this way. If your skin's oily like mine,
right,
you're providing external oil to the skin. So then your body recognizes, oh, you're going to give this to me, so I don't need to produce as much of it. So it naturally brings down that oil production. And then
this is good.
It is a good thing.
Okay.
And typically speaking, when people think, those certain people, maybe more women will think of this than men, because we're still all learning all of this stuff. But when you have oily skin, that tends to reduce your chances of getting wrinkles because you're keeping the skin hydrated. So typically people with oily skin, they tend to not have wrinkles for a longer time. And that's from that extra hydration. But that oil also causes clogged pores, breakouts, and things of that nature. So you're still providing that oil that reduces the visible signs and that look and feel of wrinkles and age, while not allowing for the pores to get as clogged. And I was a proactive baby, and so I tried that, and I mean, no shade, but I don't know who that worked for. Everyone I've talked to tried it, and they're like, I don't know what that did. If anything, it made it worse, because that was the understanding at the time. We stripped the skin of the oil, but that naturally then makes the skin go, oh, I don't have enough oil, I need to produce more. Okay. So it's counterintuitive, but again, by focusing on this performance versus just the smell, still smells nice, people still enjoy it, but that's more secondary to the performance.
Got it. Cool. So I know you give a lot of importance on sustainability. So can you tell me what role does sustainability play in your brand's mission?
Yeah, and again, that's kind of back to the farmers market thing. If you're not shipping as much, then you're not dealing with all of these plastic mailers and things of that nature. As we continue to grow, we're going to then be able to add more of these biodegradable mailers, and we're using corrugate packaging. Our tape is biodegradable. We're doing what we can as a small business. Even our packaging is a recycled material. Like we have bamboo as one of our accents as well. And so that not only adds a nice sort of subtle naturalness to it, it also then looks really nice with our blue. So it's a very, very nice combination there. But the sustainability is one of those things that as we continue to develop as a nation, we really have to focus on. I mean, everybody knows about these giant mounds of trash, and we just don't know what to do with it. That's very important, because in everything that you do, if you can bring in a plastic less or any of those aspects to it, that actually adds not only value to your brand,
but also to the environment as well.
100%. And, everything is holistic, right? So even with, when I was doing personal training, it was a holistic approach. Same thing here. It's a holistic approach to health with Lumbazzi. It's one aspect of a larger sphere.
Right.
And a lot of men aren't focusing on the care portion of it. They might work out, they might eat well, they might drink enough water, all these things. But your skin is your largest organ, and it absorbs what you put into it. So even if you're taking all the supplements, working out all the time, eating well, all these things, but you're still putting kind of junk food on your skin, you're missing out on something there.
Got it. So let's talk a little bit about industry insights and trends and things like that. So what are the most significant trends in the men's grooming industry as of now?
Just that it exists. That's a pretty big trend right there. Just even from
this started, you mean?
Yeah, I mean it's really shifting, and so the trends are going to continue to develop, and they continue to develop every single year as more companies come on board. And so it's one of those things that as the consumer is shifting and they're just even interested in things, they're kind of going through this very stepped process. And you think of it kind of from the funnel perspective. So a lot of guys, they'll kind of come through these low price companies,
right?
And they'll try that, and some people will just stick there. And there's other people that'll then funnel further down. Again, that's kind of where we are. And then if somebody just has the money and just wants to feel like they're giving themselves the highest level of care, although there's not
too many players,
not a ton of players. The trends are just, hey, we want natural, we want things to be sustainable. There's a bit of a shift there with the animal testing as well. That's something that people are coming to understand a little bit more. And as we as a society continue to be a bit more empathetic towards other things on the earth, that's just a great trend. So I'm the test animal, the first test animal.
You're the guinea pig.
Yeah, and then we expanded out from there. Cool. But realistically, the trends are going to, just like in any industry, continue to develop. And just to give perspective on the growth, in 2021, it was estimated that the men's market globally was about 30 to 31 billion, depending on who you look at. And then by 2023, it was closer to 45.
Wow. And what's it now?
Again, that's all estimates because it's so hard to tell, but they're expecting by 2030 to be more close to like 80.
Okay.
So it's continuing to really push and grow. And so as more men of all ages are becoming interested, but especially the guys who are younger than me, they're learning sooner. Hey, I should do this, And so then as, say, the son learns and talks about it to his father, he goes, oh, okay, yeah. And his wife's been nagging him a little bit the whole time, like, hey, honey, you should probably be doing that. Or he's been using her products, which are designed for women's skin.
Correct.
Now there's just more options. And so I think really the trends are yet to be seen as more men enter the market. And they have more interest. We'll see these things continue to develop.
Cool. So according to you, how has the consumer demand shifted in the cosmetic industry for the last 5 years or so?
It's shifted in the total addressable market. I'm keeping it like coming the TAMs. I'm just going to keep coming back to that in this industry. I mean, just the sheer number of men that are interested, and realistically, Dr. Squatch and like Duke Cannon and these other companies, and Van Man, those guys are doing great. Shout out. They're really allowing men to have a comfortable entry point away from sort of what I call grandpa soap or generic soap. That's sort of the white bars, the green bars that people are accustomed to using, and kind of shifting away from those. So realistically, the big shift in the last 5 years has just been towards natural, as there's more focus on sort of, again, this holistic health and what that means. So guys are kind of transferring what they've learned from food or activity to now other aspects of their life. And so that's kind of where natural care comes in. And that's the humongous shift
Okay.
in the last 5 years for sure.
Cool. What advice would you give to startups who are trying to get into the complexities of manufacturing processes?
Manufacturing per industry is very specific. I can only really obviously touch on the things that I've specifically worked on. But I will say, at least when you're dealing with a physical product that's not like clothing or something like that, where you're doing some level of mixing, for one, you don't need a ton of fancy equipment in most cases.
Yeah.
For example, I had 2 wonderful ladies who helped me make thousands of units a day with just 2 tables, 2 labelers, 2 fillers, and 2 machines that helped screw on the cap so it didn't hurt their hands so much. And that's a few $1,000 investment, but that was 6 figures a day of revenue that they're creating. And so it doesn't have to be the super complicated, super convoluted thing. As you continue scaling, now you have the tough decision. If you're in food, most people go to contract manufacturers or co-men. And what co-men are always going to want to do, because they have specialized equipment, they're going to want to make a shift to your very delicate, very good product so that it works through their machine. So that's, through bars or trying to extrude it through. So they're making this giant line essentially of, let's say, a protein bar that's just getting chopped. But it has to be a certain consistency in order for that to happen. And typically, when you're kind of going to a farmer's market or something like that, we have a guy at the Uptown Market that he has a date bar that has protein powder and these other things, and it's amazing tasting. And he's struggling with this exact thing right now because it's a very moist bar and it doesn't push through a machine very well.
Oh.
And so all these contract manufacturers want to change their formula. And that's a hard thing because their customers know
they want that.
They know what they're used to. And so you're making that change. That's where, people will say, oh, they sold out or something like that.
Right.
And that's tough. At least in the cosmetic space or anything sort of around that, typically there's a minor shift in your formulation that has to happen as you get to a larger scale. So if you're making 5, 10, 20, 50 units, that's relatively small in a single batch. Once you're getting to hundreds, there's some minor differences that the interaction of your process is now going to go through. You either have to use different equipment or you have a filling machine. You have all these new problems that you didn't have to deal with before because you're just maybe scooping it in through a funnel before, and now you have a machine that's pressing it out, and you have to calibrate that. And there's all these little intricacies that you now have to learn. And realistically, although as a small business owner myself, it feels bad, it's the smart thing to do, which is spend the money to make the batch at the scale that you need to make it at and plan to not sell it. Let it sit and make sure that it's good before you just go from making 10 to 150 and all of a sudden those 150 are terrible because you didn't understand what the differences were in these things. For lip balms, for example, if anybody else is trying to make some lip balms, there's these great trays that we got made. I can't remember the company right now, unfortunately, but they make these custom trays. You send them your tube and they'll create for a few $100s a template essentially that you can stick your tubes into so that you can make one big batch and dump the product into. So now your manufacturing process is substantially faster versus filling one at a time. I can do 100 in 30 minutes versus 100 in an hour and a half. And you think about the time requirements as an entrepreneur, that hour is very valuable. A lot of time, very, very valuable. And so the scaling process is something that takes time to understand. But if you're dealing with something like oil, for example, like we deal with a lot, it's a little bit more simplistic.
Got it.
You're kind of just measuring everything, mixing it together, and making sure that it's a good product. But there's all kinds of things that you're constantly going to learn. And one of our special processes that helps our products be just that much better is you warm up the oils ahead of time, which essentially, if you're looking at it from a molecular perspective, it expands the molecules. by doing that, then the fragrance and the essential oils or fragrance oil that you're using can then get into these molecules better. And so then as it contracts again, as it cools, it's in a more compact form.
Makes sense.
And so it's more spread evenly across the entire product. So there's a lot of things that you just have to learn, and it's hard to give one size fits all things. But a lot of the things as well that I'll say within manufacturing, a lot of that is financials as well.
Got it.
And so a lot of times what we'll do is we're kind of making a cost of goods sold is we'll forget to put in labor because we're not charging ourselves to do this.
Yeah.
But you have to go, okay, if I'm going to charge somebody this amount of time, this is how long it takes me. Maybe add 10 or 20% because you're going faster than somebody else probably will. And then add that into the cost. Make sure you don't forget wastage. That's also something that is very important. If it's 5 or 10%, that is cost.
Yeah.
And when it comes to taxes, that's something that you can use to your benefit.
Absolutely. So, you are a storyteller. And so how important is storytelling in building a strong brand identity for your own?
Well, I appreciate the storyteller call out. I feel like I'm still learning. I'm like a neophyte, I feel like. I mean, it's everything in a brand. I mean, like I'd mentioned earlier, I mean, before you could kind of just like have a product because there weren't, the internet wasn't as big. It wasn't what it was or what it is now. So you kind of just could jump in and be like, hey, I have this product and there's not that many options. So people are like, awesome.
Right.
Now, no matter almost any industry that you go into, there's somebody there. And so you have to differentiate and talk to the emotion of that person. What's the struggles that they're going through?
Right.
And where are they trying to go? That's why we landed on the tag of master your look, define your legacy. Because the mastering your look defines our product and what we're going to help you do. But the end goal that the person wants to have is define their legacy. So somebody who wants to define their legacy, which is basically all men,
right?
We're kind of saying, hey, this is an aspect to get there, and we have the solutions that you're looking for.
Right.
That. So I think storytelling is everything, and everybody is a storyteller no matter what we feel, because I have my own, as you just literally heard, my own insecurity around that.
Right.
But that's just a part of the process, and the best person to tell the story of a brand is the founder. And the sooner that you can get comfortable with that,
the better, of course.
The better it'll be, the faster it'll happen.
Yep.
And realistically, to kind of dovetail that into sort of one of the things that every entrepreneur needs to learn is sales.
Yep, absolutely.
And so sales is storytelling, but just in a different way.
Absolutely, 100%.
And so you can kind of how to do each of these things along the way. But sales is number one, that bleeds into marketing. I've learned so much about how to speak to people online by speaking to people in person.
Right.
And so being able to tell my story and tell that in a way that connects to somebody is then what connects them to the outcome that I got, connects them to the product, and then connects them to their potential outcome.
Absolutely. So what role does social media play in marketing your brand of cosmetics and things like that?
Sure. Again, it's everything, man. Like it's hard to have a consumer product that you want to get to any scale. You don't have to be humongous. You don't have to be the $100 million thing. It's great, but you don't have to get there. But in order to let people know about your stuff that aren't only in your direct vicinity, that's the way that you have to do it.
Right.
You have to use social media. And I was very against that reality for a long time. I knew that it was true, but there's always something about being on camera.
Yeah.
It feels different.
It feels real.
Very real. And then it's forever. Even if you post something, if you have any notoriety, the moment that something gets posted, somebody can rip that. And even if you delete it, it could still be there.
Right.
It's like the old days when anytime something was written down,
right,
it's that on steroids. Because if you wrote something down, it feels more real.
Right.
But you can always burn the paper. It's like,
Right.
it never happened. Once it's on the internet, it is on the internet
forever.
It is, and it's scary because in the beginning you're not good, and I'm still not that great. But
you're doing great.
Thank you. But I've certainly gotten better at it. But you just gotta suck.
Yeah.
It's just what it is, and that's truly what entrepreneurship is. Is learning that I don't know what I'm doing, and then going and figuring it out.
Yep. This is getting out of your comfort zone
Constantly,
and then trying to excel at something that you never thought of excelling.
Yeah. I mean, I would have never thought in a million years I was going to be, trying to make email marketing automation flows.
Yeah.
And how do I set that up in a way? And then I have to do A/B testing, and then I had to make a website, and trying to learn how to do all of that. I'm a hands-on guy. Right. I don't spend a lot of time behind computers typically. Definitely not doing anything graphic or artistic or anything in that nature. My art was always my physical product.
Right.
That's great and all, but if nobody knows that you exist, doesn't matter. You know the best thing in the world. But if 0 people know that you exist,
correct,
doesn't matter.
Yep. So that's one of the reasons we're doing this podcast, because this is stepping out of our comfort zone.
Good on you, man. It's hard. It's a scary thing. I'm sure at this point you're far more comfortable.
Yeah, far more comfortable. Yeah. It's more of a conversation than any, talking to the video all day long.
Totally.
Yep. Cool. So what was the most challenging part of launching and scaling Lumbazzi?
I think we were just talking about it. It's just that constant, you're just so many times you feel like you're mashing your head against the wall, trying to figure something out. And I think the most challenging thing is what you learn about yourself. And
yeah, it's true.
It's like there's things that you never thought were a problem with you. You're diving into this thing you don't really know. All these voices come up, and you're like, "Gosh, man, I'm just not good at this. I'll never be good at this." It's this internal struggle, and for me, that's been the biggest learning and constant learning is you're not meant to be good at it all, and a lot of us, myself included, want to be perfect the first time, and you have this thing, you're like, it has to be right the first time. It's not going to be.
Yeah.
Even, when I was making our current website, which is getting redesigned right now, I redid the same design 3 times as I was doing it, because I'd get all the way through it. And then at the end, I'd be like, oh, I got a lot better. So then I'd go back to the beginning, redo all of it. But then I get to the end again and go, oh, wait, I got way better. And so I just kept doing that over and over again. But that's kind of the thing. And I like Elon Musk's description of it, where you're just eating glass.
Yeah.
It's just you're just constant, but it's one of those things that it's so much more rewarding for somebody like myself, who could never be put into the solo lane. This is what you have to do. I was always thinking about the other thing. Oh, why don't we do this? Why don't we try this? Oh, I know this guy. Why don't we do? And when you're a lower guy on the totem pole and you don't have experience in this thing, and nobody does that in the industry, it doesn't mean that it's wrong.
It's just that, it's different.
It's just different.
Yeah.
And the courage that it takes to do that, to be different in a world that wants you to continue to be in a box that it can understand you. And every time that you break out of that box, a new one gets put around you, and you got to break out of that one again.
Right.
It's a tough thing to continue doing, but the person that you become along the way is amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, I would have
well-oiled.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing.
Cool. Can you share any failure that actually has turned into a valuable learning experience for you?
Yeah. When we were first launching, I think this is something that any first-time entrepreneur can kind of connect with, but I still kind of felt it as a failure, is you spend all this time, you make this beautiful product, you're like, wow, everybody's going to love this. You click launch on your website, and you go, where is everybody?
So where is the sale?
Where is the sale? It should be coming. This is the best product ever. And so getting discouraged by that initial kind of, wait, it didn't happen, was something that took me a little bit of time to kind of get over. So I'm like, oh, I know this is way better than anything else out there. You know, I know all these soap bars, they've always dried out my skin. I finally made one that doesn't do that.
Yeah.
And nobody's buying it. What's going on? Of course, you get support from friends or family, and that's great.
To get started.
To get started.
Yep.
But until you get that first kind of random person that nobody knows.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, somebody found it and somebody bought it. Oh my gosh. But getting to that point was a process.
It's difficult, yeah.
It's a very difficult process. And we all want it to be that instant thing. You're all that instant hit, you know, whatever.
I can imagine, I'll give you a little story about me too. We have this thing called exercise with oxygen therapy. It's a pretty expensive, from our perspective, it's expensive. From the market perspective, we are 45% cheaper. We try to relaunch that product a couple of times. First time we did it, nobody knew it. Now we like constantly working on it, continue to improve the product guide, the clinical studies, all of that. Now we're seeing some traction. And slowly, strangers are becoming customers. That's a great thing.
What do you think is the shift that's happening?
The shift is more education. So the more you're able to educate the people about the benefits, the features. The features, of course, is there, but then how it actually can help them improve their life. People don't always, pay money for the product itself. It's what can that product do to you on a longer term, and is that even worth investing? So we make that constant education, and we create a lot of content, social media posting, and some things here there. We started creating videos that talk about these products and the benefits. And slowly started picking up now.
So sell me on it. To explain it to me. What are we doing?
So first of all, we have this exercise with oxygen therapy equipment. It's a list of it's a mask, it's a patented mask, and it's got an oxygen reservoir bag, and then we have the machine. The combination of it works the magic. I'll give you a little example. Again, I'm not trying to hijack your conversation, but what we do here is, as you exercise, like if you're a normal person, you breathe about 75 to 80 liters of oxygen per minute.
Wow.
Okay, you did not know that.
I
probably.
had no idea.
We breathe about 10,000 liters of oxygen every day. Okay, maybe more. So at your resting period, you do about 45 to 50 liters per minute. But the concentrators that you get in the market are only 5 to 10 liters per minute. So what do? You actually create a bag, a reservoir bag, a healthy medical grade reservoir bag, which can store oxygen for X amount of time. And then while you're exercising, you actually breathe in that oxygen. The underlying premise is oxygen is life, and oxygen gives life to the cells and the molecules and everything that is inside you. So when you exercise, your cells open up and the oxygen goes in. So a 15-minute of EWAT, exercise with oxygen therapy, and I will show you the thing that we have downstairs. A 15 minutes of exercise with oxygen therapy is as good as 90 minutes of exercise in the gym. So it's that effective.
Is it only applicable for like weightlifting, or is it also cardio?
It is mainly for cardio. Do it along with your treadmill or your bike exercise. But it is also great for recovery. We have a lot of cancer patients, COPD, people with diabetes taking that, ALS, all these guys taking that and recovering from their illness, because oxygen is life. When you go to ICU, the only thing that helps you survive is oxygen. So we use somebody's book called Oxygen Multi-Step Therapy and use that. Now what we're doing is, now we're expanding, we're creating videos that actually explain the benefits of oxygen therapy and how actually it can help cure, rarest of rarest. I don't want to call it cure. We're not really curing. We're helping them recover faster.
Mm.
So that's what it is. I'm going to show you all that once we're done.
Yeah, totally. So wait, so what's the, so like our end thing is define your legacy.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
So what's your kind
Right.
of end state that somebody gets from this?
So our end state is that we are giving life back to people, and that in a way is more satisfying. And every now and then we get testimonials saying, "Hey, you changed my life. You changed my," and that's something that I can able to sleep with
Mm.
and do better for the world. So the legacy is, it's the product that we've created. It's not I bought it, but it was actually created by another person by name Michael Grant White. But I've embraced it, and now we're using social media as a platform to take it to the next level. And slowly, I'm not a doctor, so I cannot speak on the medical side of things, but I can definitely educate the benefits of using it because I myself use it.
That's beautiful.
So
I love that.
Yeah.
That's awesome, man. I didn't know that. Yeah, I'm very curious
sure.
check it out.
Yeah, please, we'll do that. So we can probably, edit this part out.
No, I mean, it's all
Okay,
good.
we'll keep it.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Doesn't
Okay.
need to be one-sided.
No, okay. No problem. Coming back to you. So how do you balance creativity and practicality in running your business?
Ooh, it's really hard. I'm still learning how to be able to balance that because they're very different parts of the brain.
Mm.
And so I'm still kind of at a phase where if I'm in a more creative brain, I need to kind of do that for that day and hone in on that. I'm getting better at being able to go, okay, I've kind of burned the creative energy, which then naturally makes me a bit more numbers based. So then I'll go and look at financials, or I'll work on something that's a little more analytical brained.
All right.
But it's hard for me still to shift that.
Right.
But I have realized in myself, I'm a little bit more creative in the morning. And then in the afternoon, I'm getting a little bit more tired.
Yeah.
And my natural state is to be more analytical and practical.
Right.
And so then that's easier for me to kind of end my day that way.
Right.
I've also found that if I need to do the opposite, I can be analytical, which gets me way too into my head. And then I'll go on a walk.
Yeah.
I'll get on the bike.
Makes
I'll go
sense.
on a run. I'll do something in my body, which is naturally shifts you into that more creative space.
Right. Okay, cool. So I always ask this question in every podcast, whoever comes. So Aryan is 22 years old. Let's say he wants to start his own personal grooming business. What advice would you give him?
Give it time. Everything takes time. Have the patience. If you're going to do something specifically in grooming, you have to meet people where they're at. Men in particular, I found that it can be a little bit of a sensitive subject. And so to meet them where they are, which for some people, they're just going to go to soap, they're just going to go to lip balm, they're just going to go something like that. All good. That's where you're at. You don't want to push people too far out of that comfort zone. You still want to kind of nudge them, but if they're not ready for it, they're not ready for it. And just like in anything else, if the person feels like you forced them or manipulated them into the sale, it's not worth the money. It's just not. It's way better to build that relationship, make sure that person feels good about the thing, has a good interaction with you, and then that's what's going to make them be more likely to come back. And I think especially in a world where so much is behind screens, that in-person, face-to-face interaction
very important.
So important. And everything comes back around. So that's why we're focusing on the farmer's market, because it's in person. You get to shake somebody's hand, have that conversation with them. And even though, that's about personal care in particular, that's just kind of, I think, a general human thing. Think about it from that person's perspective. Put yourself into that person's shoes. You're walking around a farmer's market. You're doing whatever. How do you interact with that?
Right.
And, in in the perspective of me walking around a farmer's market, I don't stop in most places because it's nerve-wracking. But as nervous as you are as the person in the booth, they're also just as nervous. And it's your job to bring them out of that nervousness,
right,
and bring them into a space where they can trust you and feel comfortable that you just genuinely have their best interest in mind.
Absolutely, 100%. So how do you personally stay motivated and continue to innovate?
Constant struggle. I think the other thing that I've kind of learned is I had this thought where you're either motivated or you're not. And it's a continuum. It's constantly up and down. And really what motivation is this thing that kind of gets you the activation energy to kind of move forward,
right,
and do the thing that's maybe scary.
Mm.
But after about a week or two, that motivation's gone. So really what you're doing after that point is building the muscles and the skills to keep going even when you don't want
Absolutely.
to, when you don't feel good. You know, it's like I used to fall into the trap because I used to work 9 to 5s where it's like, oh, it's the weekend, you don't work. That's a lot of days. It's what is that, 104 days a year that you're missing out on working?
Right.
But I had to build my capacity to be able to do that. I wasn't able to do that before. I was too exhausted. And so the motivation has been gone for a long time. But the thing that keeps me going, to still answer the question, is every time that I talk to somebody in the market that had a great experience, or you just talk with somebody, you have a genuine human experience, even if they don't buy anything. I don't care.
Right.
I just want to help people.
Absolutely.
I know our stuff is good. And so many other people have had that same experience. So I know that it's fine. I know that we're good. So I don't need to push the person to do anything.
Right.
I can be more on kind of like my back foot. Be like, I want to help you. But either you want to help yourself or not.
Yeah.
And you're ready for it or not. And I'm cool either way. I'd love to help you. But if you're not ready, that's okay.
That's okay.
Yeah.
Cool. What are the 3 essential steps to take before starting a business that you would actually let someone like Aryan know?
Ooh.
Especially in the personal care space.
I think it's probably better to go a little broad on that because, you know, like I kind of said in the beginning, it's like business is business, you know, and so it doesn't inherently matter that it's personal care. But I think you have to have your own experience with the thing, regardless of what it is.
Right.
And I think that's kind of number one. We've kind of touched on that already. Number 2, you really, really have to dig in to yourself and be willing to put yourself in these situations where you are very uncomfortable and know that you're going to come out on the other side, either from your own personal experience or like in the beginning, I was looking at people that have been online, that they kind of got their way. They figured it out.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, it can happen. It can happen. As long as I keep doing this, there's at least a chance. The only thing that I know that is guaranteed is if I quit, it definitely won't work.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then, you know, third, I think it's making sure that you have a sufficient support system around you.
Right.
Because there's some times when it does not feel good.
Talk about it.
Yeah, it does not feel good. And having that support system, that they don't have to be cheerleaders, they don't have to be anything like that. That feels maybe a little too surface level.
Right.
But they believe in you on the days when you don't believe in yourself. And those days come, at least for myself. You know, that's really the thing that I'm really getting into these days, is you can either have the external support, which is great, or you're learning to do it in yourself. And those can fuel each other and support each other. Because at some point, everybody is going to be burnt to where that willpower to keep going, I just can't do it today. But if you have a friend, you have a sibling, you have a parent, you have a partner, you have anybody that can just see that you're in that space and go, hey, you got this. Like, it's good. Keep going. You got this.
Right.
That's a beautiful thing to be able to have and really important on those tough days.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
How do you build lasting relationship with suppliers and manufacturers in your space?
I think too many people treat vendors as a broad thing, not as customers
or partners.
Partners. You know, it's like there's somebody who, as you get bigger, they get bigger. And if you're in a small organization, you likely don't have the money to go after the giant, contract manufacturers or giant bottle supplier or giant whatever. So you're dealing with somebody who's in a similar space that you're in. And so if you can just treat them like a person,
right?
I mean, it sounds so cliche, but it's just there's not enough of that. Just treating people like people. And I mean, I have amazing relationships with my vendors. They're such nice people.
Absolutely.
And some of them started. They've gotten to a scale, and because we have great relationships, they're willing to then kind of help me out because they understand they weren't in that position too long ago, and they know how hard it is. Yeah. And so $1 per product can help.
Yes.
And it just takes time, and I think it's more time consuming to do it this way. But try and get a pulse check on the person that you're going to be talking to, because you got to think about it. It is a partnership. It is a relationship.
Absolutely.
And if the product's fine, but you hate talking to this person,
it's not going to work out.
It's not going to work out. At some point, that's not going to work out.
Correct.
And so I think that's really the thing. But it takes longer to find those people that are on the same.
It's like searching for a diamond in a coal mine.
Right. Or, your life partner or a friend or, whatever it is. If they're going to be in your life, you don't want to hate them. You want to be able to just chat with them and not have it only be about business.
Yeah, you build a relationship, long-lasting relationship. Absolutely.
100%. And, those people then, can then be referrals. They can, you don't know who knows who. There's the 6 degrees of separation.
Right.
And if you're a jerk or, any of those things, you just don't know where it's going to go. Just be nice to people. Like, just as a general note, just be nice to people.
Be genuine.
Be genuine. Yeah. Authentic is kind of a term that's been thrown around a little too much, but that I don't know what the applicable non-tarnished term is, but that feeling when you're sitting and actually talking with somebody and having an actual human interaction and connection is something that allows you to build that long-term relationship. And it happens with each interaction.
Absolutely.
Every single time. And the more that you build that repertoire of good interactions, then you can have a bad one here and there, and it doesn't tarnish the entire relationship.
So this question is slightly related to the business club itself. How can small business compete with major brands in the cosmetic industry?
Ooh. You can't play their game. They're playing in a lot of cases, especially if they're a really big company. They're way more funded than you. You're not going to beat them on money. Right. So you got to find a different angle. And this is, again, a general business thing. But if it specifically in the cosmetic space, and the men's care space, there's more of a tailwind because it's growing very rapidly. If somebody were to go into coffee or sports drinks or chocolate, you're going into a cutthroat industry. There is intense, very entrenched industries. And so it's going to be a bit more challenging. So you're going to need way more money to get into that. Something like cosmetics in particular, you can use your lack of size, quote unquote, to your advantage. Because that means that you can say, well, the big brands, you're just a number. You're just customer number 17,426. Yeah. Where yours,
it's a personal.
It's a personal thing. You get to talk to the founder. You
Right.
get to send them handwritten notes that I do in every single order.
Nice.
Those little touches, which you can still scale, by the way. I don't want anybody to think that you can't scale that. You can do it. But you just have to build an experience that is unlike any other. And especially if you're going to take an approach that's a quicker to ramp up and launch, which is kind of taking a company that already makes product and you're kind of putting your label on it, even more so, you're selling something that somebody can get anywhere.
Right.
So you have to really have a differentiator. And packaging is important, sure. Quality is important, sure. But number 3 in most people's list is brand. It's in America, we're so funny. Number 1 is quality. Number 2 is low price. How does that work? Those don't work. Right. Those don't work together. But it's just how we are. But third is brand. And brand is not just packaging. It's that interaction. It's the handwritten note. It's sending that email if you can get a relationship with the person. Oh, how's your wife doing? You can send them something for their birthday. You can do these extra things to where these big brands are looking at that as a cost. Where it's not a cost. It's a differentiator.
Absolutely. Makes a lot of sense. So what are some of the tools or resources that have actually been a game changer for you in your entrepreneurial journey?
As somebody who's self-funding and doesn't have venture capital backing yet. Hopefully it doesn't even have to happen. You get rolling enough and maybe you don't have to.
Right.
But the thing, it's the thing that everybody knows about, which is AI, ChatGPT, those sort of things. You can't mush your brain into it and just let it think for you. You still have to have some critical thinking in it. It's a great tool, but it's something that can act as other team members. Just a sounding board. The amount of times that I just kind of have a concept and I just word vomit into ChatGPT and just be like, what do you think about this? We've already had conversations. You kind of know where we're going. What are your thoughts? Does this kind of fit in? To just act as a team member that is either free or $20 a month. Sure, you could go to 200, but most people aren't going to do that. They're a small business. But $20 a month to be able to have multiple team members that can at least give you some concepts and ways to kind of move and give you some ideas and help you brainstorm. I love that thing for brainstorming.
Absolutely.
To kind of help narrow down ideas, because a lot of entrepreneurs, you're an idea machine. This idea, if I do this, it'll be amazing. Yes, but does this align with the vision that you've talked about?
Yeah.
And sometimes it does help to kind of have an external thing to also keep you in check a little bit.
Makes sense.
And then be able to take the real difficult thing and give you some tools to also execute the thing. Because that's the real work is not the idea. The idea is great, but you got to do the work and execute on that idea to actually make it happen. And that can kind of help move that along a little bit quicker. So I think that's just an amazing tool. And like you had mentioned before, social media and people that have already been there, already done it.
Right.
And being able to glean their years of experience.
Right.
But don't get stuck in the trap where you're only listening to that. And again, you're not doing the work. It's the idea that if you just take in the information, it's not real education. It's just entertainment at that point.
Yeah.
You're just entertaining yourself, but instead of watching the Kardashians, you're watching Alex Hormozy. And you're just, oh wow, I'm doing so much. You're not doing anything. You might be getting some ideas again because he's further ahead, and you go, wow, that's a really good idea. I wouldn't have thought of that. But you still got to bring it down to your reality and go, but this is what I can do.
Right.
That's kind of become our recent term is, but for now. You can have this great idea. I want to do this. In the future, I want it to be this. I want to have this and this great product and be able to have manufacturing and all.
Right.
But for now, this is what we have to do. And you can have that great vision and try and build it from the jump to go towards that vision, but it's being directionally correct and moving in that way because it's going to move. It's not going to be the exact way that you planned it in your head.
Absolutely. Cool. So now we are into our fun section, which is more rapid fire.
Has it been fun?
It has been fun. Funnier section. But we always say it's even though it's rapid fire, you don't have to answer in one word or one answer, so you can take as much time as you want. So a little bit to know more about you. That's the whole idea.
Okay.
So what's your favorite grooming product?
Ooh, the face oil.
Face oil?
Yeah, face oil or beard oil, any of those. Like,
I'm gonna take one for sure.
I got you a little.
Oh, you
a
did?
little something. I got you a little something.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean that's been a game changer for me, truthfully.
Okay.
Is that? But then also I love my little scissors, because once you get a beard like this,
Yeah.
it is a project, man. You have to keep up with this thing. All those little flyaways, all this. I also do love my scissors.
Oh,
Get a
wow.
nice pair of scissors. It's very different than like a $10 little one.
Yeah, I mean, I think I have to learn quite a few things from you. Early bird or night owl?
Early bird. Yes.
What time do you wake up?
Depends on the day, but typically between 5:30 and 6:30.
What time do you sleep?
9:30, 9:30. I've just always been like that. Like my parents still to this day will joke about it. They go, yeah, we never had to worry about you with your sleep. You would take yourself to bed. We'd just be sitting and I'd just get up and start walking away. I go, where are you going, Ryan? I go, I'm going to bed.
Right. A quote you live by?
A quote I live by. I just mentioned him, and so I'll go back to it. It's more his quote. The work works on you.
I was thinking about to say, search for the best, be proper.
Yeah, there you go. That would have been a better one. So you're better at this than me. Or master your look, define your legacy.
Yeah, exactly. Master your look, define your legacy.
Yep.
Cool. Coffee or tea?
It depends.
Mm-hmm.
I'm on a coffee kick right now, but I then will eventually hit a point where I'm like, yeah, I got to go back to tea. You know, I'm always
switching.
I'm always switching. Well, because there's different phases.
Yeah.
Right now it's more of a push phase. And so coffee feels a little more natural to do. But then once you've kind of been doing that for a while, let's kind of take off the accelerator for a moment. That's a little more tea.
Yeah.
You know, that kind of a deal. I love me some matcha. Ceremonial matcha only.
Ceremonial matcha.
Yeah, the culinary is just not good. It's meant for food. It's not meant to drink.
Favorite productivity hack?
Ooh, headphones, timer, and just zone in. Yeah, I mean,
switch off your mobile.
Yeah, I mean, do not disturb. You know, put it in the other room. You know, that's just, it's so important because it's so easy. You just have that moment. You're like, oh, I wonder if, did so and so get back to me? And that just takes you out of that moment because you're losing a ton of time when you switch activities. You know, I can't remember what the exact amount is, but for every activity switch, it's like 10 or 15 minutes that you lose to get back into the flow of it. And so instead, turn off the emails, turn off the notifications, put the phone somewhere else. And if it's really that big of an emergency, how often does that happen? I don't have kids, so it's different. I can do that and be a little less concerned about it. So I understand from the parent's perspective, that's maybe less of an issue, or more of an issue. But you can also turn it to where you can have do not disturb, and you have certain ones that can still go through. Yeah. You can still do it.
One productivity hack I just recently found as late as last week is to, especially when you're working with a lot of team members across the globe, is to get on a Zoom call and mute everybody out. Start at let's say at the beginning, top of the hour. You ask everybody, hey, what's your plan for the next hour? All it takes is like 2 minutes, 3 minutes. And then you also tell, hey, my plan to do this hour is to complete X, Y, and Z. And by the end of the hour, you turn back on. They're still on Zoom. They're on video, and we don't talk to each other, but they get the things done. Then we ask each other. It's called accountability.
Mm-hmm. Love that.
So that's one of the favorite hacks I've been able to accomplish quite a few things in a very short period of time. Switch off the phone, switch off everything. Just have your team members work. Yeah,
that accountability and having somebody that's going to be holding you accountable. Yeah. You said, I'm going to do this in the next hour. And you're like, sorry, guys, I didn't quite get that done. Okay, fine. That's a good one. I like that.
So anyway, what's your biggest inspiration in life?
This might sound a little selfish, but the future self that I'm becoming.
Cool. Yeah, why not?
Yeah.
You know, you can know nobody better than yourself. Be
Well,
you.
and you know, the thing that I keep saying to people, because this is the experience that I've had as well, is you're the only person who has to live your life,
Exactly.
and everybody else is going to have their 2 cents. They're going to have their opinion, and it's one of those things that, sure, they have their opinion, but that's based on their experience of their life, where they are in their life
Right.
on that day.
Right.
And even if you follow through with that, if it doesn't work, you might be angry at that person, versus if you then decided, you know what, I agreed with what they're saying, and I'm going to take responsibility for it. Or you go, no, that's not what I'm doing, because I think based on my experience, this is what's right, and maybe it works or it doesn't.
Yep.
But at least you know that you made the decision, and you get to learn from that and have a continued breadth of knowledge from your own experiences.
Right.
Yeah.
Cool. What's your guilty pleasure snack?
I love me some ice cream, man. It's just so good. I mean, I used to have 6 scoops of ice cream when I was a kid at night. I also had a few
Favorite
more
brand?
pounds on me, but now it's nothing fancy or special, because it's a guilty pleasure that I don't indulge in very much. But I get Netflix and chilled from Ben and Jerry's. I get the non-dairy version because it doesn't mess with my stomach so much.
Yeah.
But if I'm gonna do it, I'm just gonna do it, because I do it once every few months.
Yeah.
I don't have ice cream that frequently anymore, so that's kind of like the way that I balance it. I just don't really worry about it, and then when that moment comes, I'm like, you know what?
Yeah,
I
let's
love
do it.
this thing.
Yeah.
I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna have that whole quart or whole pint in one sitting, and that's just what I'm doing, and I'm happy about it.
That's like you.
Yeah.
Cool. Skill you would like to learn?
What I just did, the pause. That's it's hard to continue to do that, especially if you're in an emotional state. Just pause, let yourself think, breathe for that moment, and
Live.
live. And it's the old, respond versus react.
Yep.
When you take that pause, you're responding.
Yeah, that's one powerful way to meditate too.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Favorite way to unwind after a long day?
I love me some YouTube rabbit holes. I've never been a big TV guy, but that is my go-to. Just, am I going to be mindless and watch nothing about some sports and just kind of enjoy myself, or I'm going to try and learn something along the way while I'm then I'm at least engaging in like some stretching or something like that while I'm doing it. We just sit down too much. I gotta let my body back up again.
Cool. One word to describe yourself?
Ever changing.
Constant. That's the constant. Yeah.
It's just it just kind of came out of me yesterday. I was talking to somebody at the market, and the thing that kind of came from that is you only get old when you stop changing. So you can start getting old in your teenage years.
Yeah.
And there's people that are in their 70s, 80s, 90s.
Still
They're
learning.
just full of life, and they never stop learning.
Right. Makes sense. So sneakers or dress shoes?
I love my dress up or dress down, depending on what other stuff I'm wearing. I love me my dress shoes. I wore them here today because there's just something about that feeling as you hear the heel on a hardwood floor or something. It just feels so good. But I also love me some comfort. You can't get enough of that. So you can get that nice in between where they still look good. And if you wear some jeans, they're kind of a nice extra statement.
Right.
But then you can wear some slacks and a nice jacket and still wear those.
Makes sense. A book that has changed your perspective?
Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself.
By?
What is that by? Oh no, I just went blank on it. Oh no, I don't remember.
It's okay, we'll figure it out.
It's Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a wonderful book.
Best advice you've ever received?
Go for it. Just
go for
do it. Just do it.
Nike.
Yep.
Favorite city you visited?
Azizi, Italy.
Oh, wow.
That was really cool. It was just beautiful. I took a picture off of this kind of bridge going between the city and then a church that we were going to go visit. And it was just this beautiful countryside. And it was just one of those days. It's just, I remember it so much because of this picture that I took of it, but it was just a beautiful, perfect day. And I was like, oh, this is so amazing. This feels like this is my people.
One thing you can't live without.
My current obsession. Whatever that is, okay. It always changes. But I have to have something to dig my teeth into, and I'm always chewing off more than, I'm always biting in and getting my teeth into more than I can chew. But
it's always that's how entrepreneurs are, right? We handle more than what we can.
I think that's the only way that you can really do it. Diving into the deep end, and you're just like, okay, I got to figure this out.
One thing I've always learned is, I've heard this quote long before. It's called, busy people get things done. So the more busier you are, it doesn't mean that you have to be, rightfully busy, but, it's good to be busy. And when you're busy, so many things are on your plate, you will get things done.
100%.
It's a good thing.
And there is the extreme of that, where you're just kind of filling your calendar.
Yeah.
But it's not moving anything forward.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like if you're busy with everything that's moving things forward, then yes, you're going to get a lot done. But if you're just sitting on a meeting just to do it, I'm working.
That's not going to happen.
That's not it.
Your dream collaboration partner.
Are we talking in business and life? Anything?
Yeah. Anything that you're planning to collaborate on?
Well, I wanted to do it before he got as big as he is, but Chris Williamson, I saw him. Now he has like 3.5 million followers, but he's a British guy, kind of right in our lane of person.
Yeah.
And I met him, or didn't meet him, but I saw him online. It's funny how I went to met him, right? Because it feels that way. Right. I met him online, and I was like, oh, British guy. Him saying proper, him saying like proper beard oil. There's something about that just. Proper, it's just like that just feels, and he's like right in that lane of the type of person that we're kind of going after. So that was the dream. Now I definitely can't afford him.
Never know. He'll come back to you.
Hey, maybe Chris, hit me up.
It's good. First thing you do in the morning?
Drink some water with my electrolyte mix, and then I sit down in my little meditation and just kind of breathe for a little while. It just helps me to kind of settle, because there's a million things you're going to be doing. Yeah. And so instead of starting my day and I'm immediately like charged and ready, I'm just like, let's pause, breathe for a moment. Yeah. And try and settle myself
before
I start, because then that leads me to have a more even keeled day.
Makes sense. What's your signature scent or fragrance?
Ode de Ryan. No, I'm not as funny as it is that I'm kind of in the smell business. I'm very sensitive to smells. And so I've recently found a cologne that I don't even know who it is, because I don't use it that frequently, but it's one that doesn't smell like aftershave to me. Because a lot of them just smell like aftershave to me. Yeah. And it's one that's a nice kind of grounding, woodsy, but still feels sophisticated. But a lot of the time I don't wear it. It's just, it overbears me, and my senses get very overstimulated by it, and it just gives me a headache. And I'm like, ugh, I'm okay. But that's why we use essential oils. Okay. It's not as pungent.
Cool. Yeah. What advice would you give your younger self in 3 words?
It'll be okay.
Well done.
Yeah. Yeah.
And what's the most fulfilling moment in your career so far?
I guess I'll do the 2 angles. So on the corporate side, that was
Dr.
Squatch, but also the other guys, Legendary Foods, they're also kind of a unicorn. So I think for me, it's having enough trust in myself and my judgment to take the time to find the unicorn, and then doing the same thing to then start my own business, and trusting in myself to go, this is the way to do it. This is the one to do.
Makes sense.
And feeling confident in that.
Very good. So before we end, we always ask this customary question. If you've been to a business club, but I know you've been to a couple of business clubs so far, what's your general feeling about business club? And in the 2 business clubs that you've been, what are the things that you've learned and what things you think business club as an entity can improve, if at all there are any? So
You're amazing, Sudev.
No,
No, I love that there's people that are like me, right? Again, I was kind of saying about the support.
Yeah.
To know that there's other people that you can sit and talk with in a group setting, you can bounce ideas off, and you and Steve are great to kind of lead that charge, to kind of keep us into a lane to make sure that everybody gets value out of it. But I love that you can just sit and have like your people, just like, you get it.
A safe space.
There's a safe space. It's like you just know that they get it. And when you're kind of on that journey, there's not a lot of people that get it.
Right.
And so that's something that's been really amazing. And then just in general, the things that I've learned are the different ways that people think about the same thing. So how different people think about a lead and what that means to them and where they get them and what's a qualified lead. It's so interesting because each person has their own version of that because their business is different.
One call close versus no call close. Yeah.
Right. And there's the hybrid models. There's, I want to do 6 calls on a close, to your point, a 0 call close. Can we blend those together? What's the experience that I want to have with my clients or customer, depending on which way you want to look at that, which those are different in my opinion. And just being able to have that soundboard of other people that are in that same general space and to here's an idea I was thinking about. What do you guys think about that? Correct. And kind of crowdsourcing your soundboarding. It's a beautiful way to do it.
Great. Thank you for your inputs and thanks for coming here, Ryan. Pleasure meeting you.
You as well.
It was great having you here. Look forward to having many more conversations.
Absolutely. I'm excited for it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey guys, I hope you really liked the video. And if you did, please like, subscribe, and comment. And we would like to reach many more small business owners. I would really appreciate if you can share the video with them as well. Thank you and see you until next time. Have a great one.